Hey guys, check out Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0, brought to you by Mama Jumbo Shrimp, a fully updated second edition, reviewed and revised by an expert panel of certified Italian wine ambassadors from across the globe. The book also includes an edition by Professore Attilio Scienza, Italy's leading vine geneticist. To pick up a copy today, just head to Amazon.com or visit us at MamaJumboShrimp.com.
Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today we are traveling to one of the most stunningly beautiful winelands in the world, the Valle d'Aosta, to meet my guests Elena and Eleonora Charrère of Les Crêtes winery, located just outside of Aosta. Good morning, Elena and Eleonora. How are you today? I hope it's a beautiful day, but I wonder if you've been suffering the really severe weather that's been passing through northern Italy.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. Actually, it's not so good weather. It's a rainy day, it's rainy. But we had a good weather in the last period, so we are happy to see the rain because the vineyard really need water in this period. Since we have passed a long period without seeing any water from the sky, now we are happy. Fortunately, here in Valle d'Aosta, we have a specific geographic situation which is different from the rest of Italy. And so we are lucky because we had rain during the spring, but not so much, and it was really good for our land. Since we are living a disaster right now in Emilia-Romagna, fortunately here is a total different situation.
Okay, well that's very good to hear. I know that the Giro d'Italia has been passing through or is due to pass through heading up towards the Gran San Bernardo Colle. And the race is going through, but I think that they've had to cut that short because of the snow. Is there still snow in the high mountains around you?
Yes, temperatures are really low in these days. So in the mountains, we have snow, like winter. Yeah.
For our listeners, Elena and Eleonora, can you describe the beauty of where you are? Because it's so different from wine country that we consider. We're in the high Alps with Monte Bianco behind you, the snow-covered Alps, and we're really at some of the highest vineyards in Italy. Describe the Valle d'Aosta and the viticulture.
In Valle d'Aosta, there is a very specific geographic situation. We are surrounded by the Alps, and especially we see Mont Blanc mountain, which is the highest Alp in Europe. And we are really close to France and Switzerland and Piemonte. As I was saying before, we are surrounded by the Alps and the weather is different from the weather of the rest of Italy. We have here in Valle d'Aosta a really few of rain usually during the year. We talk about an average of 600 millimeters per year. If you think Valle d'Aosta, you can compare it to Basilicata for concerning the rain, which is a region in the south of Italy. That's why the mountain protects us from the perturbation coming from north of Europe. That's really good for viticulture because we have a lot of wind, and that's good for the grape. Because years like medium and oidium cannot really grow that much with this weather. And talking about soils where grape grow, we have granitic matter, and our vineyard grows on glacial cliffs, and in some areas also on alluvial fens, and that characterizes the production of the wine, of course.
We'll return to the conditions in just a minute, but I just want to touch on some of the historical influences. Now, your name is a French name, Charrère, and I think your family originally came from France, but of course, in the 18th century, Haute-Savoie was part of the Kingdom of Sardinia, I guess, under the Savoia. So we didn't have the frontiers that we have today. Tell us a little bit about your family story and about this area historically.
Val d'Aosta is located along the Via Francigena, which is a strategic way for the connection between Italy, between Rome and the north of Europe. That's why here in Val d'Aosta we can find a lot of grapes coming from abroad. We are rich in autochthonous grapes, but also international and traditional grapes. That's really interesting because in the past we had a lot of exchanges concerning the grape varieties. For example, with Switzerland, with French, with Piedmont, depending on different historical periods. For example, our viticulture here in Italy came from the Roman Empire, we talk about 2,000 years ago. But it is really interesting to see how during Middle Ages there was a really preservation of vegetal materials for grapes. And it is really important also to see how along the Via Francigena we imported, for example, Petite Arvine, which is traditional grape now in Val d'Aosta. And it is an interesting grape to vinify today in different ways.
Italian Wine Podcast. If you think you love wine as much as we do, then give us a like and a follow anywhere you get your pods.
That's interesting because the Francigena, this pilgrims went from Canterbury in England across northern Europe, entering into Italy and descending down to Aosta, was a great thoroughfare of exchange of ideas as well as products. So you're saying that some of these grape varieties, such as Petite Arvine, that's grown quite widely in Switzerland, isn't it?
Yeah, Petit Rouge takes his origin in Switzerland, in close to Sion, in the area that we call Valle. We know that recent studies about the DNA have demonstrated that Petit Arvine has no any other brother like a grape. So is a specific a grape born in Switzerland. And it is also interesting to see how that grape was really able to adapt himself to the Valle, which is similar to Val d'Aosta for some way concerning the weather. I was reading about Petit Arvine origin. It is also interesting to see the name of Arvine came from the Latino advena, which means came from abroad. It means that that kind of traditional grape in Switzerland arrived from abroad, maybe, who knows. But we have some description of the grape during 17th century. So we know that it was already cultivated in that period. We suppose in Valle d'Aosta, Petit Rouge was important in the first century, the first millennium after Christ. That's why we consider it a traditional grape here in Valle d'Aosta.
Okay, so it's been there for 1,000 years almost. Incredible. But it's also important to point out, as you have done, that viticulture was brought to the Valle d'Aosta by the Romans, Aosta being a Roman city. I guess it would have been a city that was a gateway to northern Europe, as it still is now.
It was more before, maybe, than now. But yet, it's a kind of crossing a terroir. We can consider it like a heart of Europe, because we are a transition connecting 2 points, the south and the north of Europe. And that's why we are so rich concerning, I talk about viticulture, of course, and that's why we have so rich different varieties here in that small area. And you have to take into consideration that Aosta Valley is
the smallest region of Italy. So, we are talking about being a center of Europe, but we are the smallest region existing in Italy. We have produced 500 hectares, which means like about 1,200 acres of vineyards in whole the Aosta Valley.
Okay, so it's a tiny, tiny wine region, and I think that's why it can be difficult for people to find the wines of Valle d'Aosta unless they visit the area, because there just is not that much wine, is there?
I mean, it's kind of cradle protected by the mountains. You have to imagine Aosta Valley like a niche. We are lucky today if we talk about the market, because what market is looking for is niche products. So we produce niche wines, and in some way, even if we are small, we can say we are Les Crêtes, and we produce high quality and crafted wines that are well known in Italy and abroad in some way, even if the production is really small.
Of course. Well, I think you're right that consumers today are looking for wines that are unique and have unique flavors that you just don't find anywhere else. And this alpine situation of Valle d'Aosta, with quite a fierce sun by day and large range of temperature between day and night, does produce wines that have a really alpine, unique personality and character. Let's talk about a few of your most important wines, because you produce sparkling, white, rosé, and red wines. So it's a full range of wines. Let's just talk about perhaps one more white. I think your Chardonnay has won many awards, and perhaps also mention some of the typical red wines.
Yes, I let Eleonora talk about the Chardonnay and some wines we produce. Just I would like to introduce Aosta Valley terroir as a mountain terroir, which means practicing heroic viticulture, which is characterized by extreme condition, as we were saying before. So just some points to consider. Vineyards in high altitude. So all the vineyards we cultivate start from about 1,600 feet and reach the maximum altitude up to about 4,000 feet, which is very high, which means that we have to afford permanent structural difficulties like steep slopes with more than 30% gradient, terraces, steps, and the vineyard in general are divided in little parcels. The slopes are not easily accessible, that means little mechanization. So all the work is done by hand and means intensive manual labor. If you consider that we per hour the labor hours per hectare in a range between 1,200 to 1,600 hours per hectare, which is the triple than the Italian average, with very low returns because of the condition, the climate condition, and with the seasonal weather changes, we got a lot of influences on the hills because we have no hills and that are not constant. So we have a very variable production that ranges between 10,000 cases and 25 or 30,000 cases more. It's really difficult producing and cultivating this area.
Okay, I think that's a really important point for our listeners to understand. Heroic viticulture, really cultivating vines at extreme conditions that are incredibly labor intensive. And yet the work, the dedication, and the passion to continue to do this results in some wonderful wines. Let's hear about some of those wines.
Our most important wine, say important because it's a part of the story for Le Crête, is our Chardonnay Cru Bois. So it's a 100% Chardonnay. It's a Burgundy selection. And Cru Bois, it means in French, bois, oak, because this wine is vinified and aged in barrique, in 300 liters barrique. So there is a strict contact with the oak for 1 year, and after that there is still 1 more year of aging in bottles. That means that the result is really important Chardonnay. But the important things to say is that is a well-balanced Chardonnay. There is a perfect combination between the fruit, the grape, and the oak. So the warm side of the oak and the fresh side of a grape grown in the mountains. And I guess it's a wine that, even if it is aged in oak, can really express the terroir of origin.
I had a chance to sample this beautiful wine at Vinitaly, and it's exactly how you're describing it, Eleonora. It's a powerful wine, but yet it has the delicacy and the precision and the freshness of the high mountains. It's a beautiful expression of Chardonnay, unlike Chardonnay produced anywhere else in Italy.
I really appreciate that you enjoyed it. I'd like to talk about an autochthonous grape because Les Crêtes was born at the beginning working on autochthonous varieties. Our father Costantino, which is the founder of Les Crêtes, had the chance to select some plants of Fumin that was an extinction risk.
Was saved from extinction.
Okay. Pardon for my English sometimes.
Yeah.
And my father and other viticultures, wine growers were able to save it from the extinction. That's why for me is really important. Fumin is a red wine, 100% from that variety, which is fermented in stainless steel and then aged in oak for 9 months, 1 year. It's really interesting because it's an expression of a personality that cannot be compared with any other wine. We have spices, we have a great character. You can feel juice on the palate, soft tannins. You can find the juniper that grows in the Alps. And it is really interesting if you want to taste something really connected to the terroir of Aosta Valley.
The Fumin is the good brother of the Petite Arvine.
Yes, a wine that really is expressing the uniqueness of the wines of Valle d'Aosta. Speaking of these wines, can you tell us something about the gastronomy of Valle d'Aosta and how your wine pair naturally so well with the local foods?
I let Eleonora talk because she's sommelier, so she can put the good advices.
And I'm also a wine and food lover, so which is important.
Yes, of course.
Aosta Valley food is usually characterized by having a lot of butter, of fat coming from cheese, because cow farming is important for the local economy. So we can talk about the Fontina cheese. This is a geographic appellation cheese. This is good to pair, for example, with our Chardonnay Québécois. One of my favorite dish during winter time, during winter season, is fonduta from Val d'Aosta, which is fontina cheese melted and maybe with some truffle on the top and a glass of Chardonnay, maybe close to a fire. This is a nice imagine the situation. Concerning, for example, the red wine, the Fumin, I think about the pairing with game, which is common for our region.
So it's still an area where people are hunting in the mountains and in the woods.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Now, finally, I just would like to talk about wine hospitality at Les Crêtes, and I'd also like to learn about this wonderful Rifugio di Vino that you have created, this wonderful place where wine lovers can discover the wines of Les Crêtes and really enjoy being in the mountains.
We built the Rifugio del Vino, that means wine hut. That is our tasting room, born in 2016, and next to the historic winery, our historic winery. It is connected to the winery, to the old winery. And we built the Rifugio, the wine hub, because we wanted to welcome people, and we found that the best way to do it and to show our philosophy and soul was to make people discover who we are. We made it thanks to the wine hut, evoking the structural architecture of the mountains. So, as we said before, we are in a cradle protected by the mountains, and we are talking about high altitudes, and we wanted to, in some way, to build an architecture meant to protect the wine as a food and heritage of the mountain terroir, and at the same time, a structure that will be able to welcome people people and to show people our work in some way. The wine hut has a profile that reminds the mountain chains because we call Les Cretes, that in French means crests. So the crest of the mountains. And the crest of the mountains became the symbol of our brand. Also, Refugio del Vino identifies our brand and who we are in this terroir.
It looks so beautiful from the pictures. It looks stunningly modern, yet so perfectly in keeping with where you are in the mountains. As you say, the shape reflecting the mountains, the glass giving such a beautiful viewpoint over the valley. So it's somewhere...
You're welcome. Please come visiting. We are all welcome.
Oh, I can't wait to visit. Do you get visitors still walking along the Francigena, I wonder?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. And we have a lot of people visiting from everywhere, because they come from Italy, they come from France, from Switzerland. We are glad to welcome them at the Refugio.
I would say as well for visitors from the UK, perhaps. When I've driven to Italy, I normally drive through the Mont Blanc tunnel and descend down through Aosta. So we're really passing right by the Refugio when we drive down or drive back up, returning to northern Italy. So it's actually very well situated on this historic route, this route that dates back to the Romans and certainly through the Middle Ages along the Francigena. The next time I'm driving into Italy, I will without doubt stop and look forward to visiting the wine hut and meeting you both and exploring your wines further, which I love. But in the meantime, I'd just like to thank you both for being my guest today. It's been really fascinating learning about viticulture, heroic viticulture in the Valle d'Aosta and the wines, the wonderful wines of Les Crêtes and your family story. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you all for the patience and for listening our bad English.
Not at all. Your English is perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye for now. Bye. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Please remember to like, share and subscribe right here or wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.